Took me to a Buddhist temple in Korea where I saw my first Buddha statue at the grand entrance of the temple. Even as a 3-year-old, I remember feeling a sense of awe in the massive presence of the Buddha in its lotus position representing enlightenment. Hello, I'm Moon. Today I'll be joined by Kyle Titura, a Buddha and Hindu sculpture expert who will show you several Buddha statues to help you attract more enlightenment and peace into your life. So Kyle, why does the Buddha represent enlightenment?
The Buddha represents enlightenment because he was actually the first person to become enlightened. And he gave us the roadmap for all of us to become enlightened by giving us the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Paths. All these are tools for us in this world, in this lifetime, to become more enlightened beings.
Okay. So for some reason, I always thought Jesus was the first enlightened soul, but it was really Buddha.
Jesus and the Buddha were contemporaries, and they
were contemporaries.
Yeah, they taught a lot of the same things,
yes,
but not exactly the same things.
Okay.
Jesus was a god. Buddha is still a human being.
So at what moment did he reach enlightenment? What was he doing?
Actually, this is the exact moment he became enlightened. He was meditating under a Bodhi tree for 7 days, and he had all these temptations being thrown at him by demons, and he basically meditated for these 7 days, resisting all temptation, and right before he was about to become enlightened, he reached his hand down into the earth-touching gesture, as you can see right here, and he wanted the earth goddess Gaia to witness him becoming enlightened. So
wow,
this is a very kind of famous sculpture that shows a very important piece of the Buddha's life.
So Kyle, this hand that's on the right touched the earth, and that's the point when Buddha reached enlightenment. Okay, so what does this hand represent?
This hand shows the Buddha in a meditating position. It's better shown right here when he has both hands in his lap,
okay,
and that's a position of meditation.
Okay.
And usually when he's in meditation, he has his feet up facing the sky in the Padmasana, or full lotus position. And this is just a position of really deep concentration and tranquility. And if you really want to invite that into your home, into your garden, a meditation pose of the Buddha would be perfect.
Okay, so you have to have 2 legs crossed like that.
And
now,
feet facing up.
And feet facing up. Now, you know, most of us are not going to be agile and flexible like that. I mean, that's like aerobic position. So what other, can you say, do they have to do that position?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, meditation at home, you can sit in a chair, you can sit anywhere you're comfortable. The point of meditation is just to be mindful in anything you do. You can meditate while walking even.
Right, that's true. Okay, so is there anything about this position that you could tell us, enlighten us, if they want to get this statue?
Not necessarily about the position, but
okay,
just what the feeling it brings to you.
Right.
I don't know about you, but when I see a meditating Buddha, I feel more at ease,
right,
calm, and just happy and pleasant.
That's right. Okay, so attracting the peaceful and calming energy. So, what position is this Buddha in now?
This Buddha is in the Vitarka Mudra. It's a mudra of teaching, discussion, debate. So this was a position that the Buddha was in at his first sermon in Sarnath, India, when he gave his first sermon to all his disciples. So it's a very, very important time in the Buddha's life and his life story.
So this is the teaching position. So why the circle?
The circle, basically, hand positions are known as mudras,
right,
and mudras connect energy within the body. So
right,
just by connecting this little circle of energy, it's giving a new consciousness, giving a new
right,
energy flow to the body.
Okay. And so then the other hand in this one is in the same meditation pose.
Meditation position.
Okay.
Yes.
So here I see kind of like a little swirly thing over here. What does that represent? That little swirly thing right here.
That represents a Buddha chakra. It's a center, yes, of energy within his body. Right. So you usually see them on the palms of his hands, even his third eye, or on the soles of his feet.
Right, because, okay, so that represents chakra. Okay. I always see that his ears are more elongated.
That's a great question, actually. The Buddha was, when he was a youth, He was Siddhartha, and he was a prince, and he lived inside 4 walls, and he was very rich. So he had all these gold earrings, which were very heavy, and they stretched out his earlobes. So that's a sign that he was a prince, that he was a man when he was young, and he actually became the Buddha.
Right, because he had all those worldly possessions which he renounced
Exactly.
later. Okay, so that kind of represents that. And how about the head? Is there any significance to his hair?
His hair, not necessarily his hair, but this protuberance right here is a sign that he's of a higher consciousness, that he has this piece of himself going up to the heavens. It shows he has a higher consciousness.
So he's reaching up to the heavens.
Yes.
So connecting the heaven and earth.
Right.
So this statue has the most interesting pose and position. Can you tell us about this statue?
This is a relatively new design, new by meaning probably 150 years, and it just shows the Buddha resting. So it's called a resting Buddha, and I think this is perfect for just when you look at it, you really feel tranquility and just restful.
So there's no this type of the position with the one knee up. It's not. There's nothing that specifically has a meaning in.
Just purely resting.
Oh, purely resting. Okay. And what material was this carved in?
Brass. So
this is brass.
It wasn't carved. It was cast.
Cast.
Metal.
Oh, okay.
Much like this.
Oh, right, because it's metal. You can't carve metal.
Exactly.
Okay, like as you can carve marble.
There is a certain degree of carving at the end of the process of making this, but it's not carved per se like a stone.
Right, because you can't really carve metal, right? So it's cast. Okay, I know you have one more statue, and we'll take a look at it. This beautiful, elegant, well, feels like more of a feminine Buddha, this one.
That's a very good statement, because a lot of people confuse the Buddha and say she, and he's really a he.
Right.
But this is a great Buddha statue. It was originally made in the kingdom of Sukhothai, which is an old Thai kingdom. And this represents the Buddha directly after he became enlightened. So he's walking right after he became enlightened. And it's just a great art piece just because of the lines in it. He's very kind of awkward and segmented, but there's still just this feeling of flowing. He's flowing for some reason.
Yes, naturally.
It's really a beautiful piece.
I think it's gorgeous too. So this hand right here I see is in that particular position, kind of like this. What does this position? What does that position? It's kind of curved a little bit like this.
This again, that's another form of the Vitarka mudra.
Okay.
So it's another form like this. He's still in the teaching mudra.
Okay. So is this kind of like a walking meditation Buddha?
Yes, definitely.
I love those walking meditations. So in terms of the faces of all these Buddha, can you speak about them? Do they give different gestures, or does the face have any significance?
Absolutely. These two faces are very similar. They're both in the Sukhothai style. But besides that, it's each artist gives the Buddha their own face.
Right.
So you can carve something in the same style, but depending on which artist made it, it's going to turn out different.
Right.
You can give the same artist to do the same piece 10 times, and he's going to come out with a different expression each time.
Self-expression.
That's why I think it's really important for you to connect with the Buddha.
Right.
So you really have to look at the face, and if it's a handsome face, you're attracted to it. So.
Okay, so in terms of the style, now let's talk about style. I get that there's individuality based on the artist, but in terms of the style of the face, which ones are in the same style, school of style, and which ones are in the different school of style?
Basically, besides these two, each one is a different style.
Okay.
Khmer, Cambodian faces, they have very broad features, a broad nose, broad lips, broad eyes.
Okay.
The Indian Buddhas, they're different. I can't really quantify it, but they look more realistic, I'd say.
Yes.
A Balinese Buddha is much along the lines of an Indian Buddha in terms of realism.
Okay. So I know that the Buddha really affected your own spiritual growth in your life. So is there a Buddha here that really made a huge impact in your life?
Not necessarily here, but just Buddhism in general. When I was 18 years old, I went to Thailand for the first time and meditated in a temple for 2 weeks, and that affected my entire life. It got me traveling to Asia and got me very interested in Buddhism and Eastern thought.
So Buddha changed his life.
Absolutely.
So if you want to attract more enlightenment and peace into your life, place a Buddha statue in your home. Kyle has a wonderful selection of Buddha statues in his studio, so please visit his website at lotussculpture.com to get it online. Thanks for joining us. For all of my Asian living tips, visit my website at yinyangliving.com. Namaste.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Enthusiastic Buddhist. In today's video, I want to look at 4 things we should consider when buying a Buddha statue. It seems that Buddha statues are becoming quite popular in mainstream society. I mean, there are so many garden centres and so many budget shops that are selling Buddha statues these days, from selling just the Buddha's head to his whole body and in various seated positions. So how do we know when we buy one, if we're buying one that is, I guess, appropriate and traditional? One of the first things we need to establish is whether the Buddha statue is actually representing the historical Buddha, Buddha Shakyamuni, or someone else. You've probably seen, especially in many Chinese stores, the statues of a very fat Buddha who is always laughing and looking so joyful. He might be holding a bag, some coins, or playing with some children. Well, for some people it might be a surprise to know that this statue is not actually Shakyamuni Buddha. These statues are actually of Budai, who was a very popular Chinese monk who was well known for his kindness and generous nature. Apparently, before he died, it said that he revealed himself to be an incarnation of Maitreya, the future Buddha. So he's also revered as Maitreya to many. And many of us are probably familiar with the idea that if you rub his belly, it will bring you good luck and prosperity. Well, that's actually a popular belief in folklore, but you won't find that written in any of the Buddhist sutras. And also in Japan, I might mention, he's considered one of the seven lucky gods of fortune. So to distinguish between the statues of Budai and the historical Shakyamuni Buddha, you'll find that Budai is in various forms, such as with his arms lifted up or in sitting in a very relaxed position. You can basically tell it's Buddhai just by his laughing expression. But one sure way to tell the difference between Buddhai and Shakyamuni Buddha is that Buddhai always has a bald head, whereas Shakyamuni Buddha has curly hair. And also the Buddha usually has a very calm, peaceful, smiling expression rather than a laughing one. And his body is usually very slender and graceful, except in rare cases where his body might be emaciated and almost skeleton-like, which symbolises the time he tried practicing asceticism for 6 years before he became enlightened. But you won't normally find that statue in most shops in the West. Another thing you'll want to consider is the various postures you can buy the Buddha statues in. There are many different hand gestures which are called mudras, which the Buddha might use as an expression of different activities, such as teaching or giving refuge. But traditionally, the most popular Buddha statues that are used for one's personal shrine or at a large Buddhist temple are the ones where he's seen seated in meditation posture or in earth-touching posture, where his left hand is in meditation posture on his lap and the right hand is touching the ground. The earth-touching posture is deeply symbolic because it's the mudra he used just before he became enlightened. So generally, if we're interested in deepening our spiritual practice in Buddhism, then the two postures we should look at buying a Buddha statue in is either the meditation posture or the earth-touching posture. Now, in certain Buddhist schools, there are also other Buddhas, such as the Medicine Buddha, the Buddha of Compassion, Amitabha, who is the Buddha of Boundless Light, and they can also look a lot like Shakyamuni Buddha. Especially Amitabha Buddha, who also sits in meditation posture, but the main difference between him and Shakyamuni Buddha is that Amitabha holds a bowl in his hands when he's in meditation, while Shakyamuni Buddha won't hold a bowl in meditation, but he often holds a bowl in earth-touching posture. So basically, if you have your heart set on buying a statue of Shakyamuni Buddha, then the safest bet is to get one in earth-touching posture, because that is a posture specific to him. But if you get one in meditation posture, find one where he's not holding a bowl, because that could possibly be Amitabha Buddha instead. But at the end of the day, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a statue of Amitabha Buddha or any other Buddha. I mean, many practitioners might have a completely different Buddha or deity as their central statue for their shrine, depending on the school they practice in or because of their own affinity with a particular Buddha. Now, I titled this section Head, Shoulders, Knees and Toes because when we're buying a Buddha statue, it really is best to buy one that shows the complete body. I know a lot of people like to buy the big Buddha heads and put them as ornaments in their house or their garden, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking for a statue for your own personal shrine and practice, then it's recommended that you purchase a statue that has the whole body, not just the head or the hand or something. The body posture has really strong symbolism and conveys a very powerful message every time we cast our eyes on it. It reminds us of the power of meditation as well as our own spiritual potential if we really embody the Buddha's teachings. And don't worry too much about the size of the Buddha statue that you buy. Even just a small one is great to start with. Then in time you might want to buy a bigger one. And in terms of materials, it's often seen as a good thing to buy statues that are made of higher quality material, like metal and with the face painted gold, because it's said that using one's wealth towards a holy object is seen as a spiritual sacrifice of sorts and a good way of practicing generosity. But I have to admit that even though I have a couple of nice statues of other Buddhas that are of higher quality, this Shakyamuni Buddha statue behind me is actually only made of wood. And I bought it for like $20 at a discount store. It was actually advertised as one of those tea light Buddhas because you're meant to put a little tea light candle in his bowl and light it. Now, obviously, I didn't spend a fortune on this Buddha, but I really like it. And I really think at the end of the day, it's more about your personal feeling towards the statue that's more important. How much it brings you peace and joy, and how much it inspires you to practice, which are perhaps more important than getting the right type of materials or paying such and such price for it. But that is just my personal opinion. It's important to first think about where you're going to place the Buddha statue, even before you buy it, because that will probably determine what size you buy it at. Generally, we shouldn't place Buddha statues in areas like our bathroom or bedroom, if we can avoid it, and our kitchen. We really should try to find a nice clean area for it to sit, preferably where it won't get covered by anything. If we are setting up a shrine, it's good to have the Buddha at eye level when we're practicing, or even higher. So either have it on a table or sitting on a shelf. But at the very least, we shouldn't have it sitting directly on the floor. It's good to place something between the statue and the ground so that it's at least raised off the ground. And this is something we do simply as a matter of respect to the image. And if we're intending to place the statue outside in our garden, then maybe we can look at collecting some stones and earth to create some small raised platform for the Buddha to be seated on. The last thing we should consider once we've bought the Buddha statue, especially if we're serious about using it as an aid for our practice, is to see if we can have the statue blessed somewhere. Every Buddhist school, from Theravada to Vajrayana, place a lot of importance on having Buddha statues blessed for them to become effective tools for our practice. Now, if you happen to purchase a Buddha statue made of metal, often the base of it is removable and it will be hollow inside. These statues are designed to be filled with precious substances such as mantras, relics, precious stones and sandalwood before being blessed. If you have a Buddhist centre nearby, you might be able to ask them to fill it for you and bless it. If you're lucky, you might be able to find someone available to do this. But if your Buddha statue is made of wood or stone or something not hollow, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition at least, you can just stick a double vajra to the bottom and have it blessed, which is considered an acceptable minimum. I was actually quite surprised to read up on the lengths that Theravada Buddhists go to when it comes to consecrating a new Buddha statue. They will usually hold an overnight vigil of meditation and chanting Buddhist sutras. And just like the Tibetan tradition, they will tie this special thread from the most experienced practitioners to the Buddha statue as a way of like transferring their own blessings and realizations into the image to enliven and empower it. I think the ceremony probably differs from one Buddhist school to another, but there are definitely similarities. They usually call this ceremony the opening of the eyes ceremony because while the consecration is being performed, the eyes and the face of the Buddha image will remain covered until the time when the ceremony has been completed and the statue is now said to be like alive. So I hope this information has been interesting and useful, and it helps to guide some of you who haven't yet purchased a statue for your practice. Just remember that as long as you do everything with good motivation, you shouldn't worry about doing something wrong. And don't let it put you off buying a Buddha statue because you're thinking, oh my goodness, how can I get it blessed or something like that. Just buy it and see what eventuates from there. If you're wondering where you can buy Buddha statues from, as I said, it could be as easy as popping down to your local department store, garden centre or discount store. But I'll also put some links on my blog to some nice Buddha statues that you can check out if you're interested in buying one online. So that's all from me. Remember to subscribe, like and share, and to check out more posts and videos on Buddhism and meditation on my website, enthusiasticbuddhist.com. So take care everyone, have a great week, and I hope to see you in the next video.
Buddha Group presents Serene Buddha Statue. A minimalistic design depicts Buddha in the earth-touching pose, symbolizing commitment and determination. The statue measures 6.5 inches tall, made of polystone. Get free shipping within continental USA. Visit buddhagroove.com for more info.
Hey everyone, Mike Chen here. So imagine you're in a church or a temple, praying, or doing whatever you do, and all of a sudden, all the statues in the temple or church started to move. What do? Pray harder, repent all your sins, thinking the world's coming to an end? No. Apparently you take out your camera and start taking pictures. That's what happened in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, where several Buddha statues in the Pu Shan Buddhist Service Center were seen moving their lips, blinking, moving their chest and hands, and emitting light. The strange phenomena occurred for about an hour. Now here's what happened. After a service at a Buddha center, more than 100 members were lining up to meet the abbots of the center. When they saw that all around them, the Buddha statues started to move. Like I said before, I would think the world's coming to an end. I would just be on my knees in a fetal position. Witnesses said they first saw one Buddha statue's lips moving, and then its chest also started to move as if it was breathing. Then other statues started moving their lips too, and some kept blinking and even moving their fingers up and down. Their movements were really quick, like they're actually made out of flesh and bones. People have commented that it may just be distorted recordings from a blurry camera. Some have also tried to explain that a collective illusion was done to attract attention by the Buddhist Center. However, up to date, no one has been able to scientifically explain or debunk the videos that show the Buddha statues moving. Here's what I think. Statues that do weird things have been documented around the world. I mean, we've all heard about the Virgin Mary that cried blood, but documents of statues doing strange things have existed. I just want to throw this out there. I have heard of Chinese legends that have said animal spirits sometimes will possess a Buddha statue and make the statues move. When people are praying to the Buddha statues, they're actually praying to the demon spirits themselves, and that's how they gain power. Not saying that's what happened here, but I just wanted to throw that bit of information out there for you. Now, do I think the Buddha Center set this up? Like, did they hire a bunch of giant people and paint them to look like Buddha statues and then say, hey guys, when the service is over, you all move and freak the people out. Then we're going to get a lot of donations. Well, let me know what you guys think. Do you think the videos are real? Do you think the phenomena of statues crying or moving, do you think these things are real? If you do or you don't, let me know in the comments below. And again, guys, please subscribe to Beyond Science. We're going to see you again next time.
The story of the Buddha's life, like all of Buddhism, is a story about confronting suffering. He was born sometime between the 6th and 4th century BC, the son of a wealthy king in the Himalayan foothills of Nepal. It was prophesied that the young Buddha, then called Siddhartha Gautama, would either become the emperor of India or a very holy man. Since Siddhartha's father desperately wanted him to become the former, he kept the child isolated in a palace. Young Gautama had every imaginable luxury, jewels, servants, lotus ponds, even beautiful dancing women. For 29 years, Gautama lived in bliss, protected from the smallest misfortunes of the outside world. But then he left the palace for short excursions. What he saw amazed him. First he met a sick man, then an aging man, and then a dying man. He was astounded to discover that these unfortunate people represented normal, indeed inevitable parts of the human condition that would one day touch him too. Horrified and fascinated, Gautama made a 4th trip outside the palace walls and encountered a holy man who'd learned to seek spiritual life in the midst of the vastness of human suffering. Inspired by the holy man, Gautama left the palace for good. He tried to learn from other holy men. He almost starved himself to death by avoiding all physical comforts and pleasures, as they did. Perhaps unsurprisingly, it didn't bring him solace from suffering. Then he thought of a moment when he was a small boy. Sitting by the river, he'd noticed that when the grass was cut, the insects and their eggs were trampled and destroyed. As a child, he'd felt a deep compassion for the tiny insects. Reflecting on his childhood compassion, Gautama felt a profound sense of peace. He ate, meditated, and finally reached the highest state of enlightenment, nirvana. It refers to the blowing out of the flames of desire. With this, Gautama had become the Buddha, the awakened one. The Buddha awoke by recognizing that all of creation, from distraught ants to dying human beings, is unified by suffering. Recognizing this, the Buddha discovered how to best approach suffering. First, one shouldn't bathe in luxury, nor abstain from food and comforts altogether. Instead, one ought to live in moderation. The Buddha called this the middle way. This allows for maximal concentration on cultivating compassion for others and seeking enlightenment. Next, the Buddha described a path transcending suffering called the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is the realization that first prompted the Buddha's journey, that there is suffering and constant dissatisfaction in the world. The second is that this suffering is caused by our desires. As the Buddha said, attachment is the root of all suffering. The third truth is that we can transcend suffering by removing or managing these desires. The Buddha thus made the remarkable claim that we must change our outlook, not our circumstances. We are unhappy not because we don't have enough money, love, or status, but because we're greedy, vain, and insecure. By reorienting our minds, we can grow to be content. With the correct behavior and what we now term a mindful attitude, we can also become better people. We can invert negative emotions and states of mind, turning ignorance into wisdom, anger into compassion, and greed into generosity. The fourth and final noble truth the Buddha uncovered is that we can learn to move beyond suffering through what he termed the Noble Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path involves a series of aspects of behaving right and wisely. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. What strikes the Western observer is the notion that wisdom is a habit, not merely an intellectual realization. One must exercise one's nobler impulses on a regular basis, as one would train a limb. The moment of understanding is only one part of becoming a better person. After his death, the Buddha's followers collected his sutras, sermons or sayings, into scripture, and developed texts to guide followers in meditation, ethics, and mindful living. The monasteries that had developed during the Buddha's lifetime grew and multiplied throughout China and East Asia. For a time, Buddhism was particularly uncommon in India itself, and only a few quiet groups of yellow-clad monks and nuns roamed the countryside, meditating quietly in nature. But then, in the 3rd century BC, an Indian king named Ashoka grew troubled by the wars he had fought and converted to Buddhism. He sent monks and nuns far and wide to spread the practice. Buddhist spiritual traditions spread across Asia and eventually throughout the world. Buddha's followers divided into two main schools, Theravada Buddhism, which colonized Southeast Asia, and Mahayana Buddhism, which took hold in China and Northeast Asia. Today, there are between 0.5 and 1.5 billion Buddhists in both East and West, following the Buddha's teachings and seeking a more enlightened and compassionate state of mind. Intriguingly, the Buddha's teachings are important regardless of our spiritual identification. Like the Buddha, we're all born into the world not realizing how much suffering it contains, and unable to fully comprehend that misfortune, sickness, and death will come to us too. As we grow older, this reality often feels overwhelming, and we may seek to avoid it altogether. But the Buddha's teachings remind us of the importance of facing suffering directly. We must do our best to liberate ourselves from the grip of our own desires, and recognize that suffering can be viewed as part of our common connection with others, spurring us to compassion and gentleness.